Guys, I hope that you guys are doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Boom Shaka and I welcome you to another video on my channel. I've been wanting to do this video for a long time now, but I haven't because I've been afraid to kind of talk about this stuff in such a public manner. But the more I think about it, the more I realize how important it is to talk about this stuff. And so here it is. Okay, just kind of bear with me. This is mostly only for women. Men can hear this if they need to or want to, but it's not going to be useful, I don't think. It's going to be interesting, but not useful, perhaps. Maybe 5 or 10 years ago, well, maybe 5 years ago, I read this book by Eckhart Tolle. He's obviously an amazing writer and obviously like a really awakened individual. And he wrote this book called The Power of Now, and there's another one, The Return or The Earth, the second one. Anyways, there was this book that I read by him, and in it he said something about pain bodies. And it's funny because I read Eckhart Tolle's book the first time around, maybe 10 years ago, as I said, or 15 years ago, a long time ago, when I was in my beginning stages of kind of learning about this whole process of awakening. And I was still really, really, really not awake. And I was still really unsure, unconscious. And it took me 10-15 years to get to that point where I could actually read his book, and understand what he was talking about. Because the first time I read it, it was complete nonsense to me. I was reading it and thinking to myself, what is he talking about? Has he lost his mind? And so I realized this about books is that, you could read the perfect book, but if it's not the perfect time for you, if you're not in the perfect mindset, then there's really no point you reading that book at that time, because you're not going to understand it, you're not going to use it, you're not going to listen to it, you're not going to even hear what his message is going to be, right? And so same thing with any message that you might hear. You might think that's complete nonsense right now, but in a few years you might hear it again, exactly the same thing, and you might think, wow, this is actually really, really, really interesting. And then a few years from that, you might hear it again and think, this is life-changing information, right? So the first time I read his books, I thought he was completely crazy. I didn't understand it. I didn't realize what he was talking about. But then I think, as I said, 5 years ago, I read his book again, and there was this, his book is awesome, absolutely amazing. All of his books are. But there was this line in there about pain bodies, and how women specifically have to encounter their pain bodies every single month on a regular basis. As long as from the time you start PMSing, from the time you start menstruating, you encounter your pain bodies every single month for the rest of your life until you go through menopause. And then menopause itself is such a huge pain body. And then, there's life. But in the beginning, in the past, our modern society, I feel like, kind of teaches us that going through our period is a sort of burden on humanity, on women in general. That it's a bad thing that we go through this kind. And we try to avoid it completely, the pain, the misery, all of that stuff, all the hormones. We think of it as the worst thing possible ever. We don't want to go through it. It's a horrible thing to go through. It's painful, and you're going through all these mood swings, and you feel like a crazy person. You feel like a completely different human being. And society teaches us as a whole to avoid it completely. So, drink wine, drink chocolate, eat chocolate. Don't think about it, ignore it, go shopping. But what Eckhart Tolle said about this pain body, or this pain that comes up, is that as with everything, all of the good stuff hides in the pain. So if it's really important that if you are able to, sit down with this pain body, which appears every month. So we're so lucky as women, actually, that we get to encounter this monthly. So we get to deal with it on a monthly basis, which means that if you don't do it this month, that's okay. You have next month to deal with it. And if you don't do it next month, you have another month. You have an eternity to deal with it, really. And so if you can be a little bit more awakened and think about it in that manner, every single time you go through the experience of PMSing, of menstruating, of feeling these pain bodies, if you can be a little bit more conscious about it, and if you can really lean into it, there is a lot of enlightenment, a lot of awakening, a lot of information that's hidden beneath the surface, beneath that whole pain body. What exactly is a pain body? I will leave Eckhart Tolle to describe that to you. In my opinion, also, what I have kind of gathered from it is that as human beings, we're not only dealing with our own pain, obviously, as an individual, but the reality is that because we're all interconnected, we're dealing with the pain bodies or pains of our ancestors, of humanity, of this universe, of all the parallel universes, of all the different species out there, of everyone, really, right? Because everything is interconnected. And if you really think about it, it's only one consciousness that's interacting with each other in different forms. So it's really just one being. I'm one being and you're one being, but we're all just one being, really. So if you believe that, it means that this is just all a learning experience, right? And so the pain bodies is just kind of there to teach us more about ourselves. And as I said, as as a female, we're really lucky because we get to go through these pain bodies and experience it and learn from it every single month. So as soon as I read that statement, for some reason, the whole book was amazing, obviously, but for that one sentence, I think I read that book just for that one sentence about that female pain body and the experience of it recurring every month. And for some reason, it really stuck with me. And so I've been kind of practicing that on my own. And that's the reason I wanted to share this video with you guys, is that what I've been doing is that I've been really leaning into these pain bodies. Instead of running away from it every single month, I actually really use this time. My period is not that long. It's maybe 3 or 4 days. So it's not a very long experience, but there's 7 days of PMS before, and there's a lot of hoopla in the beginning and the after, and it's how it is. If you're a female, you're hearing this, you know exactly what it's all about. And so what I do is that as soon as I can start feeling that tumultuousness, that kind of like feeling where I feel, okay, cool, it's coming on, that pain body is coming on, that pain or that PMS or whatever you want to call it is coming on. As soon as I realize that it's coming on, I get into a very, very conscious and very alert mode. What I start doing is I start meditating a lot with my hands on my belly and really feeling all the pain that's coming up. Now, as society, as modern society or modern women, a lot of us, what we think is that we just think of it as physical pain. I remember when I was a teenager, when I was 13 or 14, and I first started having this pain, first started getting my period, and it was so painful. I would ask my teachers, and I would ask my biology teacher or my mother, why does it hurt so much? I mean, why does it hurt so much? And they'd be like, well, your cells are being ripped apart from your uterus, and your eggs are being ripped around, blah 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 blah. They had this scientific explanation for me, right? But it didn't still make sense to me, because I was like, it's just not the physical pain that's so bad, but it's the emotional pain of it. Well, the spiritual, there's so many other pains associated with it. It's not just the physical part of it. But of course, they didn't have an answer for it then, which is obviously fine. It was good that I asked the question. But when I read that book, I realized that it's not just the physical pain that we're feeling as women when we're going through this pain body experience, when we're going through PMS or menstruation. It's the pain of hundreds of thousands of women out there, or hundreds of thousands of species out there, of everything kind of accumulated in us, in that pain body. And because when you're going through that period, when you're going through that cycle, what happens is that as a female, we are more empathic, obviously, so we have more of more of a connection to that massive pain body that inculcates everything, than perhaps someone who's less empathic, right? And so we're given not this burden, we think of it as a burden, but we're given this gift by the world, by the universe, to go through this every single month. And obviously we can do it in 2 different ways. We can do it in an unconscious way, and I did it for a long time that way. And it's totally fine, obviously. But if you have the inclination for it and the time and the energy for it, it's a really, really great thing if you can really slow down during this time. I actually sleep a lot during that time, and luckily enough, I have the time and I have the inclination to say no to all the different events that come up. So I sleep a lot, I meditate a lot, and I really, really spend a lot of time with the pain that comes up. Not only is it physical pain is just a manifestation, or it just shows you that there is some emotional pain there. Because if you're truly not, if you're truly balanced, you should really be not going through any kind of menstruation pain. So obviously there's that. But mostly what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it a very conscious experience. I'm trying to make it an experience where I'm not just trying to numb the pain and just ignore it and then move onward to the next cycle, right? Because it's always there underneath the surface, right? And I'm noticing that the more I do this, I mean, there's a billion benefits that I've been feeling because of it. In general, my menstruation cycle, or like my menstrual cycle, is easier. It's less painful. I'm dealing with obviously I'm older now, so it's not as painful as it was when I first started at 13 or 14. But also, I've been noticing that I've been getting a lot of revelations, and I've been really, 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 really connected with my intuition because of this. It's been actually a really interesting experience. And so the reason I wanted to share this with you guys is because there is this wave of unconsciousness that is there in the world right now, which is teaching us as females to hate our bodies, obviously, but also to hate our cycles, our moon cycles, our menstruation, our PMS, our hormones. You know, we're taught to hate all of this stuff, which is actually, if you think of it as gifts, it's actually all of our gifts. As a female, we're so lucky because we have all of these gifts to contend with, because if we really use them as gifts, they can teach us a lot, and we can be ahead a lot further than people who are perhaps not as in tune with it, right? Now, I'm not saying I was unconscious for the longest time and I dealt with it in a very hateful manner. I hated it. I hated my period. I didn't want to deal with it. Even now when it shows up, I'm like, God, it's so painful. Why? But now I really try. I know I've tried to go into nature, and I'll try to hold my belly, and I'll really try to feel the pain, and I'll try to really learn what it's trying to teach me and try to get the messages that it's trying to get to me. You know, I really try. Now, I'm not saying I succeed every month. I'm not saying that I succeed every other month either. But I try as much as possible to really lean into it. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to do this video, even though it's such an embarrassing topic to speak about. I mean, I'm not embarrassed anymore. I used to be very much so, but now I'm not. But even if you guys are having a hard time listening to these words, it's important that you guys hear them, right? I don't know how many people are actually going to be able to hear these words and use them in their own life, but even if there's one or two people on the planet who can use this to get a little bit further, deeper into their pain body and help heal the world because of it, right? Because it's us, you know, we are the ones who are going to be doing it. We're the ones who can lean into the pain body and help heal the world because of it. It's not going to be the unconscious men. It's not going to be the unconscious women. It's not going to be those people who ignore all of this stuff. You know, it's going to be us. It's going to be the people who are willing to do the work, even though it's so difficult and harsh at times, right? And so I hope that you will take on the challenge if you guys are interested. And if you find it interesting at all, sit with it and learn from it. Learn from your pain body. And I'd love to hear from you guys. You know, if you have done this in the past on your own, then please tell me about it. I would love to hear from you guys. And if there are any males listening, what do you guys think about this? Do you guys go through a PMS? Do you go through this kind of pain body cycle? I don't know that much about it. I don't have that experience. Again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. I'm grateful that you are able to keep your mind open to such a random topic. And again, I thank you for being on my channel. I really appreciate all of your energy and your love. And I shall see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.